is TheatreWatch. My name is Dave Conover, and this evening I am here to tell you that you are in for a very rare treat. Now, I'm very excited to tell you that the show that we have coming up for you this month in September is called Look Back in Anger. Now, this is a richly articulate and passionate portrayal of Jimmy Porter, an angry young man, and the people that are closest to him. In fact, the term angry young man came out of this play. So we're going to meet him now. Jimmy Porter.
Should it look angry?
No, you don't have to. Jimmy is a conflicted character, a person of tremendous intelligence and with a very great capacity for knowledge. The way I see this character, you're full of passion and in a degree of madness. You rail against things that the vast majority of people would either find comfort or solace in, things like religion, society, family relationships, even politics. All of these things make you angry.
Right.
Because you kind of see through the facade of what they represent, and it just makes you want to tear them down.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much Jimmy in like a nutshell. You know, that's like that's what he is in surface, and he's very passionate about everything really. So every time he starts talking about things, and I think he gets almost like a kick from putting people down, and he kind of like relishes in like other people's misery so that he can feel good himself, kind of thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he is. He does everything, I think, with a lot of passion. Especially, you know, he loves with a passion, but he hates everything.
You feel trapped in a cage, don't you?
Yeah. It's actually, I do. It's funny because there's like a song that I keep listening to every time I come to rehearsal here. It's called Rusty Cage by Soundgarden, and it kind of fits perfectly because the song is about breaking a rusty cage and running away.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what Jimmy is. He's trying to get out somehow, but he can't, you know, and I don't know, he's just angry. It just makes you angry. So, but he's very, I don't know what's the word that I'm looking for, but he just lets it all out, you know, he doesn't hold anything back in.
Yes.
And that's because he's just very honest, and he doesn't really care about what people think. It's all mostly about what he thinks.
Yeah,
Sees the world.
You're very honest. It's not so much that you're angry at somebody, but you're angry at everybody, but no one individually.
In particular, right? So he's just angry, but also he's very honest, you know. So he's not going to sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
He just gives it to you just the way it is. And for most people, you know, in life, I mean, it could be hard to take. And just Jimmy just doesn't care, you know. But that's him.
And speaking of hard to take, we're now going to move to his wife, Allison. Now, when I was thinking about how to approach a discussion about your character, I thought it would be difficult because you allow him to be whatever he wants to be, and you just sort of like take it. You don't fight back. You just let it be the way it is.
Right.
And you're not, and I think part of that is because you realize that he's not focused on you.
Mm-hmm.
He's just focused at what you represent, and that that whole idea it doesn't offend you. I mean, when he goes over the top, well, that's one thing. Like in certain scenes that happens, but it doesn't really bother you so much. But now you come from, one of the things that he gets upset about is the fact that you're from a well-to-do or upper-class, well-mannered family. I mean, your father's a colonel, so that should tell you that you have led somewhat of a regimented existence.
Right.
But you rebel against that, don't you?
I think a little bit, for sure. I think when Allison decides to go after Jimmy, she's absolutely rebelling against what she's been brought up with, and that's why it creates such a ruckus in her family. And I think of the appeal why she marries Jimmy in the first place.
He's very colorful, he's
Yes.
very passionate, and he almost represents everything that the life that you grew up in does not represent.
Exactly. He's the antithesis of my entire existence up
Yes.
to that point.
Right. And so for that reason, you're willing to be here in this moment with Jimmy, regardless of what he says or how it might affect you, and it might or it might not, but I'm sure it does in some way. But,
Right,
but
of course.
by the same token, you've chosen this position, and this is where you want to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Although I do say, oh crap, I forgot what line I was gonna quote.
Well, okay, that's fine.
They'll come see it.
Yeah.
Hey, but just blurt it out, because we're going to be here for a couple of minutes.
Alright, yeah, I forgot
All
what
right.
it was.
Next, we're going to move on to Allison's friend from the past, Helena. Now, Helena is an old friend of Allison's from the time before she met Jimmy. Now, you're in town, you have an acting gig in town, you're looking for basically a place to crash, you have an old friend here, so you decide you're going to see if you can come and stay with her for a period of time. I don't know if you really know. No, you do know that she's married, but you don't know anything about Jimmy, because I don't think she has told you very much about him. She doesn't seem to communicate too much about Jimmy in her letters. So I'm guessing that when you come, and after you have had a chance to have a little tete-a-tete with Allison, and Jimmy comes in, this is like you're almost caught on your heels because of the way, and you draw his fire almost immediately, because you represent the same kind of thing that Allison represents, a kind of a well-mannered society type person. That's how you're dressed.
Yes.
And so you come in and you meet Jimmy and his fire.
Yes. Helena is a very strong-willed woman, and she comes into this home and she is confronted with the fact that she wants to save her friend or rescue her friend in her view, while Jimmy's view is that he is rescuing her, but they are both totally different ways, and there's such a conflict between the two. And while Allison and Helena were both brought up the same way, Allison being with Jimmy, it's made her more timid. She goes along with anything he says, but Helena has remained the same.
Right. Yeah, because you're not necessarily rebelling against your upbringing, but you've just chosen a career path
Right.
that has taken you into different places. Now, one thing that I did want to ask you about is that even after you have had this introduction to Jimmy and his vitrolic temper, you still end up having an affair with him. How do you justify that? How does your character justify that?
Spoilers.
No.
Give away
All
too
right,
much.
that was just something
Yeah,
that.
thanks for coming.
Just take a spoiler.
All right, we're going to pass on that question. We'll
And
talk
Alice
about
gets all
that
the
later,
stone, then
because
everyone
it's
dies.
just something
I
that.
remembered what it was if you want to.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, she does say at one point, it seems to me that after all that time brawling with Mommy and Daddy over Jimmy, I couldn't appeal to them without looking foolish and cheap. I think at a point she realizes that she's made a mistake in marrying Jimmy, but at that point it's too late. She can't do anything about it.
Okay. All right.
And she needs Helena to come in and take charge and really say, "You're leaving. I called your father. You're leaving,"
Yeah,
to get her out the door.
got it. All right, well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move on to Cliff. Now, Cliff is a friend. He's probably met them, Allison and Jimmy, a couple of years earlier. You live downstairs. You're friends with both of them. When necessary, you're an advocate for Allison. When Jimmy gets too mean and starts being abusive. But even with all this, you have a tremendous affection for both of them.
I mean, well, me and Jimmy have been friends for a long time, so I think like, you know, we're close like brothers. So I know Jimmy really, really well. But when Allison comes into the picture, you know, living with them, I start to have that, you know, same attachment towards Allison, but in a different kind of attachment.
Right.
Throughout the play, there are like some certain situations where Jimmy gets at Allison and I come for her defense.
Yes.
And at that point, being with them for so long, my character is like used to it, used to that, like, you know, that environment. And, you know, that sort of changes when Helena comes into the picture. I don't want to spoil too much, but, you know, things get interesting.
Yeah. She kind of stirs the soup a little bit, doesn't she? All right, well, thank you. Next we move on to Allison's father, Colonel Redfern. Now, in watching your performance, I am reminded, you're going to appreciate this, I think, because I'm reminded of the scene from the movie Chinatown. Now, in the last scene of the movie, where they're when Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway are taking the daughter away from the town, John Huston comes in at the very last minute and picks up the daughter and takes her away. Now, you're kind of doing the same thing where you are trying to rescue your daughter from what you feel was a bad choice in marrying Jimmy.
Yeah. Colonel Redford is dealing in a world that he's not used to. He's used to being in charge, and now he's not. He was a commanding officer in India for 30-some years. But for the last few years, since India became independent of Britain, he's home. I assume at this point he's probably out of the military. He's probably retired.
Right.
And he's not sure how to deal with it. He's as a commanding officer, he's used to being in charge. And now he's living in a world that's changed. His country's changed. He was not happy about Allison. I think he loves Allison very much, and he's very frustrated that he can't. I think that he couldn't stop the marriage, and he's not quite sure how to deal with it.
But you're more than willing to come in and try to rescue her.
He'll do anything for Allison.
Yeah.
But he's not quite sure what to do. I think.
Okay.
And at one point he says, "I am mystified." I think he is.
Well, these are the characters from Look Back in Anger. We have Dave Harris, who plays Colonel Redfern. We have Alexandria Pascucci, got it, who plays Helena. Ronnie Banerjee, who plays Cliff. And we have Sidney Hymanson, who plays Allison. And we have Ankit Sharma as Jimmy.
Gotta play nobody.
And you play nobody as Jimmy. Now, the director here is Dave McGrath. As I said, come on up, Dave. This show has been a dream for you. You've always wanted to do this, and in watching this show, I can see exactly why that is. So you must be incredibly pleased with the way things have turned out.
Well, I am. You know, I've heard of this show, and then about 6 years ago, a buddy of mine and I went to go see it at the Roundabout Theater in New York, and I just really loved the way they had done it. The production of it was directed by Sam Gold, and he just did a beautiful job and everything like that. So I was fascinated by it. I went and I got the script. I read about it. It got a little bit more details on it. And I've always wanted to do this. So when the opportunity came up to do this here, and Joe Bagnall thankfully said that it was okay, gave us the green light on it, I just jumped on it. And it was such a terrific show, and I was so fortunate to get this cast to come in and do it. And they had like, what, about 2-3 days to rehearse? You know? An hour or so, you know what I mean?
And they're not sweating either.
Yeah, well, you know, I sprayed them a lot, you know, they're all shellacked. So, you know.
That's what it is.
Yeah, no, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful job. One of the things about this play that always intrigued me is that this play was the first to bring that kind of reality into English theater. And they said that this is the play that actually changed the course of English theater, and then eventually American theater too. So when it opened up in 1956, I think on the West End, I'm not exactly sure, it's in the book somewhere, but it was a great success, you know, at that time. And it hasn't been done a lot, and like I said, it was brought over to New York about 6 years ago, and I was fortunate enough to see it, so I'm so glad to have this opportunity to do it.
This is a wonderful show, and this cast is crucially important to the portrayal of that
Wonderful,
show.
wonderful.
And,
Poor Angus doesn't get to say much, but,
absolutely, no.
you know.
But this is an amazing show, it truly is. I encourage, and I use that word with a capital A or E, encourage, to come and see this tremendous show.
You say on courage.
The right way to say it.
Yeah.
It runs the entire month of September. We have a Sunday matinee on September 16th, and it runs through September 29th. So for the entire cast of Look Back in Anger, I want to thank you for watching, and please come and see this show. It is a brilliant show with some brilliant performances. My name is David Conover. Thank you.